Hey guys, Scott here. I've not been feeling super well the past couple of days, so I haven't really made any content. And because of that, I was working on something off stream and off YouTube, just so I could feel like I was, doing something productive. But I figure rather than just post this image while it's done, I might as well work on it live so I can explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. So what this basically is an attempt to assign all the killers in the game a number rating based on a bunch of different variables. This is not like a tier list or anything like that. It's just a number assigned to the killer, and I'll go over how I come up with that. Apologies if I'm out of breath. I have like a sinus infection or something, so I have to take a minute to re-talk. But let's go over the things I'm considering, because these are the things that I think make up a killer. So it's their ability to control the map. That is one of them. These things are all weighted differently, but these first two, map control and downing potential, are by far the highest weighted. So map control is, map control. It's the strength with the killer can be in multiple places at once, get around, or just get survivors off generators, things like that. The second variable is the downing potential, basically how good they are at chases. Whereas like Deathslinger might be very good at chases, he might not be good at map control. Example of that kind of thing, he's very good at downing people. Next, we have two little minor variables. This is basically trying to average for the fact that you would need multiple tier lists to include multiple add-on setups because they can drastically change a killer. So to kind of circumvent that and try to make one list of things, basically I tried to average out the strength of the killer without add-ons and the strength of the killer with add-ons, and they are weighted a bit differently as well. Then we have map dependency. A lot of killers are extremely good on some maps, but very useless on other maps. For example, Blood Lodge would be a terrible Wraith map, but Larry's would be an excellent Wraith map. So some killers are fairly map dependent, like Huntress as well, and some can do well basically no matter what. Finally, this is a small modifier as well. It is the specific counters to this killer, whether it be perks or flashlights or add-ons or things like that. For example, Hag and Wraith countered by flashlights. Doctor, Calm Spirit, Iron Wool against Spirit, Spine Chill against Stealth Killers, things like that. It's basically how strong a survivor could potentially counter that killer with items or perks. And so I want to go over the weighting of all that stuff now. So the map and the ability to down people, M and D, are weighted as one. They're a full 100% weight. They are definitely the most important facets of killer. Next are the two add-on setups. With no add-ons and with add-ons, they are weighted 50% because, I don't want it to be entirely about the add-ons. I know some add-ons can drastically change the killer a lot, but I want to focus on the killer itself, not necessarily the add-on. So both of these add up to another full point, basically, but it's just an average between the two, kind of. Next, we have the map dependency, which is fairly important because, like I said, you could have a Huntress on Blood Lodge, and she's arguably the best killer in the game, or you can have a Huntress on Larry's, and she's one of the worst killers in the game. So map dependency is pretty important, so that's weighted at 70%. And then finally, the specific counters is weighted at 30%. All that is divided by 4 because these are 2, and then these all add up to an additional 2, so then you divide it by 4, and you get a number below 10, or at exactly 10. So this is a live experiment. I haven't actually plugged any numbers into the formula yet. I just want to see if I look at these things objectively, or as objectively as I can, if it ends up with a fairly accurate result. So let's just do it. Like I said, I didn't prepare for this. I just turned this on because I thought it'd be cool to watch the live process, I guess. And I have no content because I've not been doing so great. So let's start off with Billy. This is going to be map pressure. Map pressure is pretty damn good. I know Billy got nerfed a little bit, but I played Billy since his nerf, and I never even came close to overheating ever. I could go around the entire map, no issue. So I'm going to give his map pressure, it's still a 10. He is probably one of the best map pressure killers in the game. He can get to the other side of the map in just a couple of seconds. The overheating thing is not an issue since they buffed him from the PTB, and also this add-ons that affect that too. So his map pressure is perfect. His ability to down, however, it's not as perfect. He gets you in the open, it's extremely easy to down, but as long as you've got a window or a pallet or something in the way, he still gets looped to some extent, but once you are in a bad area, he can down you pretty fast. I'm going to give him a 7 there because if you're in a bad area, he instantly downs you, but you still have a lot of shit to work with. Strength without add-ons. He's not very add-on dependent anymore. There used to be a heavy reliance on add-ons when he had like tuning guide and stuff like that, but now that's been changed. I'm going to say he doesn't really get that much better or worse with add-ons. So we're going to say his reliance is low, which means the number would be high. So I'm going to say like 8. And for with add-ons too, I guess he gets like a little bit stronger. Once they buff low pro chains or they make it work properly, that'll be pretty good. Overall, I mean, he really doesn't change that much with or without add-ons. So his values there are not going to be that different, and they're also going to be high because he still has his main power and it's not very reliant on add-ons. Okay, next would be his map dependency. He's a little map dependent, like in the indoor maps will destroy his ability to get chainsaws. However, he also has a huge leg up on a lot of other killers where he can get around large maps very fast. So indoor maps are only, there's only 3 or 4 of them, so not a very big deal. And he can get around a lot of other maps very well. So I'm going to give him an 8 here, just minus a couple points for the indoor maps that render him fairly useless. And finally, specific counters. I can't really think of any perks or add-ons that specifically counter Hillbilly, so I would give that a 10. That's basically what that means. If there's not any specific counter to the killer, then you give them a 10 for that point. So let's see. Let's plug the stuff in. So we got 10 and 7. 10 and 7. So we'll do 7 and 10. And then we'll do 8 and 9. We'll do 8 and 9. And then we'll do 8 and then 10. 8 and then 10. And that adds up being 8.525. So we'll say 8.52 is Hillbilly's final score, basically. Oh my god, why can't I select this? This is so trolly. There we go. 8.52. Oh my god. We'll just say 8.5. Doesn't fit. I made that way too big. Alrighty. Next, let's move on. So that's kind of how this is going to go. Oh man, this is hard to talk when I got congestion and stuff. Trapper. Who was Trapper next? His map control is pretty low. He has to spend a large portion of the match setting his traps. Now, once he actually has his trap set, he has fairly decent map control because he can sort of close off areas to go. But a lot of map control is the ability to get other places too, which he doesn't really have anything special for. Once he sets up his area, I'd say his map control is fairly decent. But other than that, he's basically just walking around, not doing much. So I would say that's probably going to be like a 5. And it goes up to like a 7 or 8 once he's got full trap set up. But that takes a lot of time and you lose a lot of pressure for that. So we'll say his map control is a 5. Ability to down is not super great either. If you're good at Trapper, you can definitely corral people where you want to go, but sometimes you don't have that many good options. Like, there are definitely, like the key ones like Shack and all the God windows and stuff like that. A good Trapper won't trap at them, you'll trap near them, so you loop around and step in them while you're not really paying attention to it. So I'd say his ability to down is not terrible. I'm going to give him a 6 there. I feel like that's fair because a lot of the time you end up just being man with machete. So I think 6 is fair there. Add-on reliance. With no add-ons, I'm going to go ahead and give him a 2 here. He is incredibly add-on reliant. Just the bags themselves are super important. So he is very add-on reliant, so he's definitely get a low number there. With his best add-ons, he actually gets pretty damn strong. I would give him an 8 with his best add-ons because Iridescent Stone is pretty damn good. Plus the Stitched Bag, that's a pretty damn good combo. So I would say with his best add-ons, quite good. Map dependency, he's fairly map dependent. He can do pretty decently. Trapper's interesting. He can do well on a lot of the maps a lot of killers can't do well, like Haddonfield and stuff like that, because he can trap a lot of those problem windows and render them obsolete. So he can do well on some maps, and on other maps, like big wide open maps, he's like Rotten Fields is horrible for him. A lot of the Yaboka maps that are big, although they have a lot of foliage and stuff to hide traps in. I'm gonna say it's pretty. I'm gonna say Trapper is decent at it. Like, oh shit. He's not super reliant on the map actually. There's a couple of wide open maps that are bad, like Larry's would be terrible too. The game would be awful, but for the most part, Trapper is pretty good at just being able to play Trapper on most of the maps in the game. So he's not super map dependent. Specific counters. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Small game, maps. I guess it's really just those two things, huh? Small game and maps, which are both not particularly common. So I'm going to say not that strong. But there are two... The things that do counter him are massive. So I'm going to give him a 5 here, because if someone does have a small game where they do have a map, Trapper is a joke. But those are fairly rare items that you're not going to see too often. So we'll give him a 5 there. Now we got... All right, 5, 6, 2, 8. So 5, 6, 2, 8. And then 5, 6, 2, 8, 7, 5. 7. Oops. 7 and 5. So that comes down to 5.6, which is actually a lot higher than I thought it would be. Huh. Interesting. Okay, so 5.6. Where the hell? There we go. 5.6. Come on, let me do it. Come on, there we go. Alrighty, and that would be Trapper. Next, let's go over to Wraith. Wraith's map control, I'm just going to include Windstorm, because Windstorm is literally a required add-on for Wraith. Without Windstorm, Wraith is god-awful. And I'm waiting for that to be built into his base kit again. But I'm just going to assume this is with Windstorm, because that's basically every Wraith. His map control with Windstorm is not too bad, actually. He's pretty speedy with it. He can get around the map faster than most killers, so I'm going to give that a 7. Ability to down. He's very good at getting a first hit, but that second hit is significantly harder. Depends on the perks you bring as well. I know, like, with Spirit Fury Enduring, I actually find it pretty easy to get downs, but I'm relying on the perk, so it's not necessarily the killer itself. So, other than that, he gets his first hit very easily, but his second hit is very, very hard to get. Unless you're playing that kind of hit-and-run style, and that's hoping that they don't have medkits or any methods of healing. Because if they do, they'll just heal out a pallet and force you to chase them there. So, I'm going to say he's got a very average. He's good at getting a first hit, bad at second hit. Add-on, without add-ons, he'll be a 1. Wraith is absolutely awful. Just tragically terrible without Windstorm. It's pretty much required. Windstorm allows you to move significantly faster while you're invisible. And without Windstorm, you're like barely faster than normal move speed. It's so bad. They really need to make that base kit. He's very add-on reliant. Now, with good add-ons, with his Silent Bell, Coxcomb Clapper, even Spirit Warrior, obviously Windstorm. With his best add-ons, he's pretty good. So I'm going to say the strength of his add-ons is an 8, because they do drastically improve how strong he is. A Silent Bell Wraith is actually pretty scary. So that plus Windstorm, I'm going to say that's pretty damn good add-ons. Now for map dependency, not super map dependent. He can do well on most maps except the wide open ones. Rotten Fields, terrible. Blood Lodge, terrible. But really a lot of the maps that a lot of killers do bad on, like the indoor maps, he actually does very well on. And that's a trend for a lot of the stealth killers. So that is I'd say he's not very map dependent, actually. I'm going to give him an 8 there, because I can only think of a handful of maps that are actually really bad for Wraith. Like the big wide open ones. So, definitely not too bad there. For specific counters, eesh. He's got a lot. Spine Chill kind of deletes Wraith. And then Flashlights also delete Wraith. He's pretty countered by 2 fairly common things. So we're going to give him a 3 there, I think. 7518883. 7518883. 7518883. Which gives Wraith a 5.75. A little bit better than Trapper. It seems to be adding up so far with what I think, so we'll just do 5.7 because I can't fit the next decimal point. All right, next. The Nurse. I have a feeling she's going to score quite highly. Map control. Ever since she got nerfed, it's no longer a 10. I'd say it's probably closer to like an 8 because she has to wait 2 seconds between her blinks. So it's not perfect anymore, and she needs to try to choose whether or not she wants those blinks to be offensive in a chase or for map control. So she got knocked down from a perfect 10 here to I'd say an 8. Downing potential, probably the only 10 in the game. Good nurse will shit on you in 10 seconds every time. She is utterly terrifying in the hands of a perfect player, so I'd say that's probably going to be the only 10 in Downing, maybe Spirit, but we'll see. Add-ons, strength of that add-ons, she's not really reliant on add-ons at all. Most good nurses never used add-ons even to begin with, so I'm going to say 9. Strength with add-ons, I mean, she's slightly better, so we'll say 10. Map dependency, she's terrible on, like, Larry's, Midwich, Rotten Fields can be shitty. There's a couple maps she's not great. I'll give her an 8 there, but for the most part, she's pretty damn good on almost every map. Things that counter her specifically: Iron Will, quick and quiet, head-on, kind of minor counters. Flashlights don't really count because you can't actually light burn her. I mean, I'm going to give her an 8 because, I mean, if she gets head-on, okay, she's stunned for 2 seconds, then she just still blinks on you anyway. Iron Will's pretty good at confusing her for a second, but other than that, I mean, there's not too much. So 8, 10, 9, 10. 8, 10, 9, 10. 8, 10, 9, 10, and then 8, 8. 8, and 8. Interesting. I thought she'd be like a 9. I mean, I guess she's very close, 8.8. All right, so 8.8 for the nurse. Seems about right. I thought she'd be a bit higher, but, you know, this is kind of an experiment. 8.8 for nurse. So, in theory, that should be the highest score if this system is working properly, but we'll see. Next, the shape. Map pressure. Very small. He starts off very slow, takes a long time to get going, and even when he gets going, he's still just a normal movement speed killer with no additional movement at all. His map pressure is quite bad, so we're going to say 3 for that. Ability to down is actually quite high. If he's in tier 2, he can sneak up on someone, pop to tier 3 before they even have a chance to do anything. I'm going to say his downing potential is an 7 or 8. I'm going to say 7 because, I mean, it's not like he can always do that. But it's still really good when he can do that. Dependence on add-ons, not super dependent. Definitely the increased stock time is the stock speed is very nice. And Tombstone Piece and stuff like that is very good, but I'd say he's not super reliant on add-ons at all. However, the add-ons he has are pretty fucking nuts. Instant kills, significantly faster stalking. This is going to probably be one of the few 10s. He literally has an add-on that can instantly kill you. It's like the only killer in the game that can do that. His add-ons are actually very, very scary. So I would say that's a 10 there. Map dependency, he's fairly dependent on maps with a lot of line of sight blockers, like all stealth killers. So again, your Blood Lodges, your Rotten Fields are all going to be terrible, but a lot of indoor maps and smaller maps are pretty good. Overall, not super map dependent. I'm going to give that a decent 7. Things that specifically counter him. It's mostly just Spine Chill. Spine Chill is pretty good for letting you know Myers is coming. Object of Possession obviously wouldn't count. Well, I guess it would count once he's tier 2. Object counters I should really not include Object of Obsession because that counters almost every killer, so I'm going to say there's not too many specific counters, but Spine Chill does hinder it pretty badly, so I'll say 7. So 3, 7, 7, 10. 3, 7, 7, 10. 3, 7, 7, 3, 7, 7, 10. And then the last two were 7, 7. 7, 7. 6. Really? Interesting. He was higher than Wraith. Okay. I mean, I guess that makes sense. 6.3. We'll round that up to 6.4. 6.4. Alrighty. Doctor. Doctor's map control. While he can't necessarily get around the map, he does pressure the map by knowing where to go faster. He also pressures the map by slowing the survivors down by putting them in madness. His madness effects also make survivors think he's closer, and he can also find out immediately where survivors are in his terror radius pretty easily, but he still has to walk around everywhere. But the information shortens the walking a lot, so I'm going to say 6. Ability to down, he's pretty consistent at downing people. Doctor is very good at downing people. It takes him usually a finite amount of time, but he's pretty damn good at confirming a down on somebody. The speed at which he does it is fairly average, but honestly, he's decent at downing people. I'm going to give him a 7 there. Maybe an 8. No. It depends on the loops. It depends on the maps. I'm going to keep it 7 for now. Add-ons. He's pretty add-on reliant. No add-on doc is kind of meh. We're going to give him a 4 there. And the add-ons that he does has, Iridescent King, the electrodes in particular are insanely strong. I would give that a 9. His add-ons are very, very good. A no add-on doc is laughable. A heavy add-on doc is actually pretty scary. So I'm going to give him a 9 there. Map dependency, he's not actually that map dependent. He can do well basically on every map. He can find people easily. He can use his power on loops pretty easily. I'm going to give him an 8 there. Actually, I see no reason to not give him a 9. Because I can't really think of any bad maps that he has. I say like Rotten Fields and stuff, but that map is bad for everybody. And like Midwich is bad for everybody, so I don't want to say that because it's not fair because it applies to everybody. So honestly, he's not very dependent on maps at all. Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Specific things that counter him, pretty much just Calm Spirit, right? Yeah, it's just Calm Spirit, which is not a big deal. It does nullify his ability to find everybody, though, so I'm going to say 7. That's fair. 6, 7, 4, 9. 6, 7, 4. 9er. 6, 7, 4, 9, 9, 7. 9, 7. 6.975. I say that rounds up to about a 7. We'll round that up to a flat 7. Let's see if this makes sense so far. Yeah, kinda. Interesting. This is cool. Okay, man, sorry. It is hard to breathe. Huntress. Okay, map control. I mean, she still just has to walk around everywhere. But given line of sight, she can threaten anywhere on the map. So it's not like she just has to walk everywhere. She is a 110 killer. But I think the speed of a 110 killer is drastically underestimated when it comes to just crossing the map. For example, it takes only 2 more seconds to cross the map as a 110 killer compared to a 115 killer. So Huntress can't have any worse map control than, like, Myers or someone. Actually, she would have better map control than Myers because she doesn't have a tier 1 phase. So just her walking around the map is not necessarily terrible, but it's not good. She is, slower than the other killers to a very small extent, but she still has to walk everywhere. The only saving grace is if she can see somebody, she can hit somebody with a hatchet from anywhere on the map, which is really useful. And as you get better at Huntress, you realize you can pressure lots of parts of the map without being there. You can have a guy in a hook across the map, and you're still pressuring that guy, which is really, really nice. So her map pressure is actually better than you'd think, but it's not great. I'm going to give her a 7 there of her ability to threaten anywhere she can see, but she can't physically get there. So it's not perfect or anything like that. Ability to down is very good. One of the better killers that it can down people very fast. I'm going to give her an 8 here. The only reason it's not higher is because there are certain tiles she can't do anything about, really, that are like tall walls. You just have to run around it twice and kick it. So there are some tiles that she's not great at, and there are, obviously indoor maps and stuff that she's not great at. But given most generic tiles, T-walls, L-walls, shack, and jungle gym, she's very good at basically every main structure in the game, if you know how to play her well. Add-on dependency, very little. You can play Huntress without any add-ons and barely notice a difference. I'd say she's one of the least add-on dependent killers in the entire game. Now, with add-ons, this will be, I'd say, the other 10. Iridescent Head. That one basically speaks for itself. One-shot downs. It's ridiculously broken. I'm sure they'll nerf it at some point, but as of making this, it's not nerfed. Map dependency. Pretty damn map dependent. I'm gonna give her a 4 here. Because she needs a line of sight. And when she has line of sight, she is one of the best killers in the game. But a lot of maps have a lot of areas without line of sight. So I'd say she's pretty damn map dependent, unfortunately. As far as things that specifically counter her, I would say Object of Obsession, but again, I'm trying not to mention that because it counters everybody. Other than that, there are not very many specific counters other than Dead Hard. Dead Hard kind of fucks Huntress pretty bad. So much so that I'm going to say that's probably like a 6 because Dead Hard is pretty common and it destroys Huntress. So, yeah, I say it's about fair. She's probably going to end up a bit lower than I thought, but let's see. 7, 8, 9, 10. Ooh, I like that. 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 4, 6. Actually, not that bad. 7.2 rounded up to 7.3. That seems about right. Actually, that actually does seem about right. This is really interesting. Oh god, not 7.3. There we go. Okay, Plague. Her map control is not that great. She pretty much has to walk everywhere. Nothing special. But she's a normal move speed killer. But, I mean, she honestly, her map pressure is not good. I'm trying to think of anything that she's got going for her in map pressure. No, not really. Actually, she's a very average 5 for map pressure. So she just has to sort of walk everywhere. Now, her downing potential is quite good. I'd probably put it on the same level of Huntress. When she has Corrupt Purge, it's almost a 9 or a 10. Without it, she still has basically a Billy Chainsaw where she can back revs, you know, her junk in someone's face and down them instantly. So her ability to down is actually pretty fast, too. So it's like a 6 without her power and like a 10 with her power. I'd say that averages out to about an 8. Now, her add-on dependency, she's not very add-on dependent, although her emetic add-ons are quite strong. I'm going to say she's a 7 without add-ons. With add-ons, she has Black Incense and the emetics, which are extremely strong. That's almost a 10, but Iridescent Head and, you know, Tombstone pieces and stuff like that, I think, are just one level above. So I'm going to say a 9 there. Map dependency, she's not super map dependent. She can get people to one-shot on any map no matter what. Her ability to hit Corrupt Purges suffers on indoor maps, just as, you know, it would suffer with Huntress. So the same things that Huntress suffers from, she would suffer from as well. But she's, I'd say, less map dependent overall because she can get people to one-shot territory and then just M1 them. So I'm going to say like a 6. The bigger the map is, also, it kind of makes her suffer because she can't get to her Corrupt Purge wells. So fairly important. And finally, things that specifically counter her. Not that much. In fact, she specifically counters medkits. She has her own counter. I'm trying to think if I'm missing something big here. Not really. There's not really any perks that... I mean, even if you have Iron Will, you're still coughing. So, yeah, no, I'm going to say 9 there. There's really not much specifically that counters her. I feel like I'm missing something, but we'll just ignore that for now. 5, 8, 9, 7. Wait, no, 5, 8, 7, 9. 5, 8, 7, 9, then the last two are 6 and 9, because nice. Gives her a 6.9 with that round up to 7.0. Which seems about right. I think she's like slightly weaker than Huntress, so far, makes sense. Demogorgon, map control, fairly decent. He's got some portals to go, but he's got to set them. He's got to physically be there first. Kind of like Hag. Map control for Demogorgon. I'd say it's like a 7. His portals can be used, but not super frequently like Hag. But they can get you to the other side of the map almost instantly. So he does have some map control, and it's actually pretty decent when you do use it. Ability to down, I'd say, is pretty average as well. He can zone people for free by readying his power, which is really nice. It shortens loops a lot, but he still kind of gets looped a little bit depending on how round the loop is. Obviously, you can't do your lunge at curve, only for a straight line. So I'm gonna say that's also a pretty average 7. I mean, he's definitely better than average at downing people. He's not bad at all. But it's fairly, I'd say it's fairly average. Add-on dependency, he's like he doesn't need add-ons at all. Honestly, his best add-ons are like common and uncommon, so I'd say he's not add-on dependent at all. The strength of his strongest add-ons don't really do that much. So pretty much the same as his no add-ons. Not much of a change at all. And for his map dependency, I'd say he's not that map dependent. He can get around big maps pretty well, and he can use his power. He can use his lunge on most loops, even if they're short. I'd say he's not very map dependent. 7 or 8. 7 or 8. 7. Things that specifically counter him. Dead hard. To some extent, if you know he's going to lunge, but not that much. He's, yeah, he doesn't really have that much that specifically counters him. So I'll say it's about an 8. I should probably lower this number because his strongest add-ons don't really do anything. I mean, the free side is nice, but let's lower that one a little bit because that doesn't really make sense to be better than that. Okay, so that is 7796. 7, 7, 9, 6, and then 7, 8. 8. 7.2, really? Better than Plague? Huh. I guess it depends on the map. 7.2. I guess this makes sense because I'm taking into account how well they can perform without add-ons. And usually in like tournament settings, add-ons are very limited. So, I mean, I guess this kind of makes sense. And they're still very close. It's 0.2 off, but that's very interesting. Anyway, Deathslinger, map control, pretty low. Pretty much just has to walk everywhere. I'm going to say just your standard average map control. No, honestly, it's even worse than average because he just has to walk everywhere. He doesn't really have any map control. He can sneak up on people very easily, but in terms of actually physically getting there, yeah, he doesn't have much at all. Ability to down people, though, is quite high. It's going to be an 8 or a 9. I'm going to say 8 because if people drop pallets early, he has to still run around the loop twice and it wastes more time, so it's not great, but if a good Deathslinger wants to hit you with his shot, he's going to hit you. So I'd say his ability to down even good survivors very fast is quite high. Add-on reliance, not super add-on reliant. The reload add-ons are pretty good. So without those, I'd say he's probably about a 6 or a 7. Yeah, his add-ons aren't that impactful, honestly. Really, the only difference is the reload add-ons, which are pretty damn good. But we'll say 8 for that. Just slight improvement. In terms of map dependency, he can do well on basically every loop. He can even do well on indoor maps, now that I think about it, because with Monitor and Abuse, he's essentially a stealth killer. So even on indoor maps, he can do pretty well. So I'd say he's not very map dependent at all. Yeah. I mean, I would say the bigger maps sucks, but again, the bigger maps suck for everybody, so. I'll say he's not very map dependent. He can do well on basically all the maps. Things that specifically counter him. I wouldn't even say dead hard because you'd have to predict it and just randomly dead hard in a certain direction, so not even dead hard. I guess Spine Chill for the Monitor and Abuse Deathslingers, kind of. Other than that, not much. There's really not much that specifically counters Deathslinger. Yeah, there's really not that much that specifically counters him. All right, 4, 8, 7, 8. 4, 8, 7, 8, and then I believe 8, 9. 8, 9. Really? Also just a 7. I guess because his map control was so bad. On the same level as Plague. Interesting. I always thought Deathslinger was a bit better than Plague. Huh. I guess when you plugged in the map control thing, though, it really hurts him. That's interesting. I'm learning things. All right, let's go for Hag next. Map control at the beginning, absolute dog shit with trap setup, pretty fucking good. So I'm going to say it's like a 4 at the beginning and then like a 9 at the end. So we'll say that averages out to about a 7. Because she won't obviously have the entire map with all of her traps up, but when she does, she can be everywhere at once. So I'd say that'll average out to about a 7. Pretty good. Ability to down people, also pretty damn good. I'm going to say that's about a 7 or 8. I guess it depends on the setup and whether or not the survivor knows there's a trap there. I'm gonna say 8, honestly. Ag is pretty damn good at downing even good survivors. Ag can push you into a scenario where it doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to go down, so I'd say an 8 there is pretty fair. How reliant is she on add-ons? Not super reliant. Ever since they buffed Hag years ago, she's not very reliant on add-ons anymore. So, however, her add-ons are pretty good. Actually, not really. Actually, there's a couple of decent add-ons she has. I'm gonna say 7 and 8, but I'm going to say I'm not super experienced with Hag's add-ons to make a fair judgment there. I know she's not very add-on reliant, but I do know her add-ons can be pretty decent, but not amazing. Now, some of her add-ons actually suck. I'm just going to say 7-8 for safety, but I will admit I'm not very knowledgeable on Hag, so this one is a bit of a not sure. Map dependency, I'd say Hag is good on almost every map in the game. Big maps are really bad for her. So, Red Forest, Rotten Fields, things like that are terrible, but I'd say she's not a map-dependent killer at all. Things that specifically counter her, flashlights fucking destroy Hag. And that's a pretty common item, and it's a very big counter. So I'm gonna say like 4 there. If you got a team of flashlights, Hag is a joke. Yeah, okay, that's fair. 7, 8, 7, 8. 7, 8, 7, 8. Hey, look at that. Was already set up. And then 8, and then 4. 7.3. Seems about right. 7.3. This is a lot more talking than I thought I'd do, and I'm out of breath and dizzy. It's alright, we only got... Oh, there's so many killers in this game. Fuck. Alright. Nightmare. Map control. Pretty damn good. Can teleport to any gen with a fairly low cooldown. I would say he is one of the better map control killers in the game. Ability to down, also pretty consistent. I'm going to say that's probably 7 or 8. That's the thing. He can down people very, very fast. But it's not even very fast. He can down people in a guaranteed fashion. But he still has to, you can still loop a Freddy. You just get less loops because he drops his slowdown and you have to drop the pallet earlier. Then he can try running around and then you do the, will he vault the pallet minigame kind of thing. So it can take it a decent amount of time, but he can always confirm that you will eventually go down. So I'm going to say a 7. He can't do it very speedily, but it's very consistent. Add-on reliance, not very add-on reliant. He has annoying add-ons, like swing chains and stuff can be very, very annoying, and paintbrush too. Those can be very, very strong and very annoying, but he can also do pretty well without add-ons. So I'm going to say 7 without add-ons. Now, with his add-ons, probably a 9. If you've gone against a swing chains paintbrush Freddy, Jesus, oh my god, that is just the worst shit ever. So I'm going to say, as painfully boring and awful as that is, it's unfortunately quite good. It'll probably make everyone disconnect and you win by default. Map dependency, Freddy doesn't care much about maps. Even big maps, he can teleport around. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like I have to give Freddy's going to be a lot higher than I thought he would be. His map dependency, he can do well on basically every map in the game. Because the traps can shorten any god loops. He can get across big maps. Yeah, I can't think of any real weak maps for him at all. Things that specifically counter Freddy. I guess. Not much. Spine shield to some extent. I'm gonna say there's not too much. I feel like an 8 is appropriate there. Damn, dude, Freddy's gonna be a lot higher than I thought. 8779. 877998. Son of a bitch, dude, what? All right, I mean, I'll roll with it. I mean, I never mind. I guess this makes sense. We haven't done, like, Spirit and shit yet. All right, we'll roll with it. Freddy's an 8. Pretty damn good. 8.0. That's higher than I thought it would be. Now we got the pig. Map control. That's the thing. She doesn't have map control where she can physically be there. However, she does have the game delay aspect of her traps, which does control the map. The whole point of map control is getting to a place to where survivors can't work on gens. And that is map control when she puts traps on your head, because you will not be able to work on gens. So she has to walk everywhere. She just has to walk everywhere like every other killer. But the traps do give her some pretty good control over the map, because you can predict where survivors are going to go because they have to go to the traps. And also it keeps them off gens. So she has pretty decent map control. Ability to down, I'd say it's pretty average. Her dash can be used in some short loops. So because of that, I'd say it's slightly above Wraith, but she's kind of similar to Wraith in that she gets an easy first hit, not an easy second hit. So the only reason she's a little bit above Wraith here is because her dash can be used at short loops. Add-on reliance, not super add-on reliant, although her add-ons are pretty good. With no add-ons, I'd say she's she's like a 6. Having the combat straps and the videotape really helps her dash mind games at loops. And the additional traps are really good. Tampered Timer is extremely good. Honestly, her add-ons are quite good. Additional traps and Tampered Timer. I'm going to honestly give her a 9 there, because Tampered Timer plus an additional box is dirty. That's a really disgusting combo. So I feel like 9 is pretty fair there. It's rough if you go against that shit. In terms of map dependency, she excels on stealth maps. Really bad on the open maps. Very similar to Wraith, but I'm gonna give her the same number as Wraith in map dependency, because saying big maps are bad for her is kind of lame, because big maps are bad for everybody, and she can do well on the stealth maps. So generally, the stealth killers have less map dependency because they don't rely necessarily on line of sight to use their power effectively. Things that specifically counter her. Nothing in particular, although I actually know Spine Chill is actually pretty big, now that I think about it. Spine Chill is a fairly common perk too, so we'll say 7 there. But that's basically the only thing that specifically counters Pig. Yeah. So, Pig might actually be higher than I thought too. 7, 6, 6, 9. 7, 6, 6, 9. 8, 7. 7.0. Really? Same level as Doctor, that can't be right. Oh, the numbers don't lie. Although the numbers may have been inputted incorrectly. And again, this is rounding too, so this is not super precise, but I guess it's mostly because of the strength of her best add-ons. But then the Doctor's best add-ons are pretty fucking good too. So what's the difference between 7, 6, 6, 7? I guess because Doctor... No, but I accounted for that too. You know what? I feel like giving her a 6 in map control is not fair. Because I gave Doctor a 6 in map control, and they have kind of the same level of game delay. Actually, I don't know, man. Well, Plagues is better, but it lasts less. Because you have a limited amount of it. I think I'm going to drop this to a 6. Just because I don't feel like it's... I just don't think she's better than Doctor, so I'd say 6.8. Very, very close, but I just don't think she's quite as good as Doc, so I feel like that is a bit more fair. I can't have a... Even though, like, the numbers make sense while I'm adding them, I just can't have a scale where she's better than Doctor, because that doesn't make any sense. So I think I'd have to make her map control a bit worse. Seems fair. Okay, Clown. Pretty much no map control. Just has to waddle around. He doesn't have a phase 1 like Myers, so I'll give him a 4 instead of a 3, but pretty much no map control. Just has to walk everywhere. Time to down people is not even that great. He can shorten loops a significant amount, but they can still get to the next loop pretty easily. He can definitely say... he can down people, it just takes a decent amount of time, so... He's not terrible at that, but I'll say 6 there. Reliance on add-ons. Without add-ons, his reload speed is pretty bad. His slowdown is really bad. I say without add-ons, he's just bad. His, like, default slow needs to be more. But with, like, Bleach and Reload, or Bleach and increased duration and things like that, he actually gets, like, significantly amount stronger. So I'd say that's more of a 7. Map dependency. Good thing is he's not very map dependent. He can use his power on basically every loop in the game. So I'd say he's not very map dependent, except the big maps and maps with... lots of windows where he can't necessarily block one specific one off. He needs maps that have a specific path you have to go. So like things like Larry's would kind of fuck him a bit. He also needs a line of sight as well. You know what? I'm going to drop it down to a 7 because he needs a line of sight to be able to throw his bottles in a way that's going to obstruct the survivor's path. So things that specifically counter him, none really. There's nothing that specifically counters him. Again, this is a low-weighted thing, so it doesn't affect the score that much, but nothing really specifically counters Clown. Now that I think about it. 4, 6, 4, 7. 4, 6, 4, 7. And 7, 9. 5.7. Better than Trapper, really. I mean, we're splitting hairs here. It's literally like a 0.1 difference, so might as well say they're on the same level, but that's why I don't make tier lists, because the differences between them are so fucking minor that it's like, it's just not even, it's not even worth putting like tiers to it. Spirit. Map controls, pretty decent. Even with any add-ons or even without any add-ons, she can get around pretty fast, but she needs to be careful. It's not like she can use her power to just go wherever she wants. She's got decent map control, but it's not amazing. I'm going to say she's got a 7, because if she needs to, she can get where she needs to be. If she needs to get to a gen, even though her power is gone, she can get people off that gen, but then she gets there and she has no power for a little bit. So it's not perfect, but it's not bad either. Time to down, I'm going to say... I mean, I have to give her a 10. It's like, a good spirit is going to down you with basically every use of her power. So, comes up pretty fast. I'd say her time to down is... Actually, let me compare time to down with Huntress, because Huntress can down people... I guess it depends on the map. Time to down is 8, but that's also map dependent. I got to give Spirit a 10 for time to down, because she's one of the few killers in the game that can just completely disregard the survivor skill and down anybody in a very, very short amount of time. Add-on dependency, she's not very add-on dependent at all. I would give her an 8 there. You can do very well without add-ons. And I would say even with her best add-ons, they're not that much better anymore now that they nerfed all of her ridiculous shit. Prayer beads and the amulet and Wakazashi and all that stuff. So... she's not super add-on reliant, but her best add-ons don't make her that much better. And for her map dependency, I would say she's not very map dependent at all. She can do pretty well on every map. The only maps that would screw over are, again, big maps, or maps with a lot of things that obscure scratches. So like Ormond, of course, Rotten Fields, things like that. But again, those maps are bad for every killer, so I feel bad mentioning that. But I would say she's not map dependent at all. And specific things that counter her. Iron Will is a big one. Iron Will is a huge one, actually. I'm actually going to give her like a 6 just because of Iron Will. If somebody has Iron... well, but then she can have Strider, too. And that counters that. You know what? We'll make that a 7 just because of Strider. I'd say that's fair. I'm not going to give it any higher than that because... that you start getting into having to bring perks, so I'd say a 7 is fair there. All right, so 7, 10, 8. Whoops. 7, 10, 8. 7, 10, 8, 9, 9, 7. 9, 9, 7. 8.4. Actually, we know it would be 8.47, so that round out to 8.5. Seems to make sense. Although she's better than Billy, so I don't know. It doesn't quite add up. Come on. Man, it just does not want to select this. Try that one more time. And if it doesn't work, I have a solution. Okay. You know what? There. So we'll say 8.5. Surprisingly tied with Billy. I don't know how that happened, but like I said, I'm just mostly doing an experiment here to see how things line up. Where the hell? Hold on. I gotta go and find the layer now. There it is. Sorry. Okay. So 8.5. I mean, she's definitely better than Billy. So I wonder how those values added up. Again, though, we're splitting hairs. I only think she's slightly better than Billy. I would say if I had to just modify the numbers for cheating, I would say she's an 8.6 and Billy's an 8.5. Billy would be more. I think Billy would be more like an 8.4, and she'd be like an 8.6 or 8.7, and the nurse would be slightly better at an 8.8. But like I said, this is why I don't do tier lists. These things are so imprecise. Cannibal. We're gonna go off new Cannibal now. Map control. None really. Just walks around everywhere. 4. Ability to down is actually a lot better now. He can use his power if you're in any dead zone of any kind, even if you are not in a dead zone. He can use his power loops to down people now. But he was just changed, and people have not really practiced with him yet. I'm going to give him a tentative 7 because they did buff the hell out of his power. But this is subject to change because he just got changed, and we're not sure yet. What are his add-ons? Without add-ons now, 6 probably. Not great, but not as bad as he used to be. With add-ons, I'm going to say... I'm trying to think of his new add-ons now. Iridescent Flesh is really fun. His chilies are really good now, too. It seems like his beast marks are not that great anymore. I'm going to say the strength of his best add-ons. I don't know. When I played him, they didn't feel very impactful, but they didn't feel bad not having them either. So I'm going to say 7. But again, he's very new. So map dependency, maps with lots of windows will definitely destroy him. So Larry's is going to be awful. Any maps with really the small congested maps like Wrecker's Yard too, a lot of connected loops, things like that, it's going to be tough for him to chainsaw people. So I'd say he's decently map dependent actually. Things that specifically counter him. Nothing in particular. I guess Sprint Burst. I'd say just Sprint Burst basically is like the main counter to Bubba. Because even Dead Hard is not as good. Yeah, I'd say just Sprint Burst. 4, 7, 6, 7. 4, 7, 6, 7, and I believe it was 6, 7 again. So 6.0. That seems fair. That means Myers is better than him, though. You know what? I feel like it's just not fair yet. Oh my god, this is so annoying. Why does it keep doing this? It's just, we're not too experienced with him yet, so all that shit can really change. It's not really fair to say that this one is even very accurate right now. Because wait, what? Was it 6 point? No, it wasn't 6.7. It was 6.0. Never mind. Why did I say 6.7? Stop it! Oh my god, these layers are so friggin' annoying. Yeah, I feel like this one is more subject to change than a lot of these, just because he's so new. But he does have really no map pressure, and his time to down is still not amazing. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Legion, map control. He can delay people a bit. He can get places a bit faster. And when he gets there, he can make them mend. So I gotta say it's like better than Plague, but it's not amazing. So I'll say 6 because he can get around a bit faster. And he can find out where people are a bit better. So he gets more map knowledge too. Time to down is pretty bad though. I'm gonna say his time to down is like a 4 because he can get that initial first hit again, but man, that second hit he doesn't have anything. He's just an M1 killer with nothing. So his time to down is pretty bad in my opinion. Without add-ons, his add-ons aren't that impactful. They used to be ridiculous with mixtape and the mending blades and things like that. His add-ons used to be disgusting, but he's not a very add-on dependent killer at all. So I'd say 7. Doesn't really rely on add-ons very much. And honestly, even with his best add-ons like Iridescent Button is kind of okay. He's got a couple of okay add-ons. I feel like scaling is weird because I almost want to say this number is also 7. You know, I am. I'm going to say I don't think his add-ons are very impactful at all. You know what? I'm going to change this to 6 and then 7. Because I have to say that... No, actually, no. 6 and 8. Because his blades are really annoying. They waste a lot of your time, especially if they stack the blades. So I'd say his best add-ons are pretty decent, actually. Map dependency... Big maps, again, counter him, but it's not fair. I'd say he's not very map dependent. He can do well. Not do well. He can be the Legion on basically any map. Doesn't really matter that much. And I feel like I'm having an internal debate on whether or not to involve big maps in the decision. I kind of have been a little bit, but I'm like, I don't know. We'll say no for now. I feel like this needs to be a 7. Things that specifically counter him. Nothing really. Spreading out counters the hell out of him, but the thing is, spreading out also counters every other killer too. I'm talking about like specific add-ons and perks and items and things like that. I'm not going to talk about specific strategies, so I'll say nothing in particular in that category really counters him. So 6-4, 6-8. 6-4, 6-8, 7-8. 6.0 again. Huh. Bubba is definitely better than Legion now, so this is funny how this is working out like that, but I feel like I'm just gonna like cheat modify some of these numbers. Like I'm just gonna go, you know what? I changed my you know what? Never mind. This overlay keeps messing up, so Cannibal, you're stuck at a 6. Legion is also now a 6. Ghostface, map control, pretty much square in the middle, nothing. Can't get around any faster, but, and there's no but, very average. Time to down can be pretty fast, actually. I'm going to say that's probably more to a 7 because he's so buggy and breaking him out of his stalking can be hard sometimes. And also, he can sneak up on you, he can get grabs really easy like any other stealth killer, so I'd say his time to down is a bit faster than average, but, you know, if you know he's there, it's still not great. Add-on dependencies. He's not very add-on dependent. He can do just fine without add-ons. I'd say. Honestly, he's really not add-on dependent at all. I'd say about an 8. And I'm going to say his best add-ons... No, I can't do that. It's not fair. I'll do 7 and 8. Because his best add-ons increase his stalking speed and... He's caught on tape is interesting, but it's not like, I don't know. His add-ons are not very impactful at all, but he's also not very reliant on add-ons too, so I think overall his Ghost Shroud recovery ones are his best. And that would just bump that from a 7 to an 8. I feel like that's fair. Map dependency. Like most stealth killers, he is not very map dependent. The only ones he suffers on are big wide open maps again. Blood Lodge and Rotten Fields, things like that. So not very map dependent, but those 2 maps do absolutely destroy him. Actually, there are a lot of maps that have a lot of wide open areas. I'm going to say, I'm going to consult the other stealth killers. 7, 7, yeah, okay, I'll give him the same 7 I gave the other stealth killers. And things that specifically counter him, Spine Chill fairly heavily as well, which is pretty common. So I'm going to say 6 because it's a pretty significant counter. 5, 7, 7, 8. 5, 7, 7, 8, 7, 6. 7, 6. 6.5. Interesting. Doctor would be better, but he is better than Shape, which I agree with, so I guess that makes sense. Huh. Don't you do it. Don't you start this. This one. Ugh. What was it? 6.5. Alrighty. Where is that layer? So it looks pretty again. Sorry, I've been running out of breath. This whole sinus thing has been, very hard to breathe. I can't breathe through my nose, and I can't breathe while I'm talking, so I have a, it's a very, very, very tiring thing. And I have, immediately begun regretting making this video. I don't know where this layer went. It's just gone forever. Oh, wait, no, there's... Okay. The Oni. Map control, average when he has no power. Extremely good when he does have his power. So it's like between a 5 and a 9. So we'll say 7. There. Ability to down is like a 4 without his power, but a 10 with his power. Like an 11 with his power. I think he has the best power in the entire game. I'm honestly going to say 8 here, just because his power being up is so insanely strong. The only reason it's not a 9 or 10 is because he doesn't always have his power. So that is fair. Reliance on add-ons. He's not reliant on add-ons really at all. His add-ons are nice, but he can do just fine without add-ons. However, Top Knot, Lion Fang, like even the Crutch, the thing that drops more blood point. His add-ons are disgusting. But they're not as game-changing as Iridescent Head, so I still have to say 9. I almost want to do like 9.5 there, just because it's got Top Knot, but 9 is, I think, fair. Map dependency, he's actually not that map dependent. He can use his power essentially on every map, even Larry's. The only map you really can't use his power on is like, Madam Preschool can be rough because of the 3 main buildings, and they're all very tight corners. Haddonfield sucks for everybody, and Hawkins has a lot of tight corners. But on every other map in the game, I'm going to say a 7 just because of those maps. But he can use his power in most generic loops, though. So things that specifically counter him. Medkits can be rough. Healing up denies him his power a lot better, so medkits are really good against him. Calm Spirit, because Infectious Fright is usually very, very common at how most Onis play. Other than that, I'd say that's about it. So we'll say about a 7 or 8 there. Because Infectious Fright's a perk. It's not even like the Oni ability itself. But medkits do really, really hamper it. So I'm going to say 7 there. Because he's not perfect in that regard. 7, 8, 8, 9. 7, 8, 8, 9. And then I believe 7, 7. So 7.7. Seems about right. Yeah, he worked properly too. Oh, we're almost done. Holy balls. This was such a bad idea. Pyramid Head. The newest addition to the game so far. Map dependence, or map control rather, is... He doesn't really have much map control. I guess he can save a bit of time, but that doesn't... You know, I'm just going to give him a 5 there. His map control is actually not good. Although he can save time by not having to pick people up and put them somewhere else, he also loses a lot of map pressure too by putting them on a hook that he can't choose. So it kind of cancels itself out, in my opinion. Ability to down, however, is pretty friggin' good. I'm going to give him an 8 there. His ability to down people at loops is... It's pretty damn strong. But not as strong as Deathslinger. Wonder if I should raise Deathslinger from an 8 to a 9. Because I think Deathslinger is slightly better at Pyramid Head. Maybe not, because he can go through walls and he has the same mind game. He has the same zoning at loops. Maybe not. You know what? I'll leave it the same for now. Add-on dependency. I've not played too much Pyramid Head. But it seemed like his add-ons, his iridescent add-ons are garbage. It didn't seem like his add-ons were too impactful, so I'm going to say he's got a 7 there. And I would say with his best add-ons, only slightly better. So an 8. Map dependency, he can do well on most maps. He can even do well on the indoor maps. He does well at a lot of loops. I'm gonna say an 8 for map dependency, because he can do well on basically any map in the game that I think about it. And finally, oh god, I'm so out of breath. Sorry. I don't even remember what this S stands for. Specifics. Specific counters. No, and in fact, I would say he counters other things like Borrowed Time and Decisive Strike, so I'm going to give him a 9 here because I don't think he has any specific counters in terms of perks, because even Dead Hard doesn't work because he can just zone it and not actually use his power. So we'll do 5, 8, 7, 8. 5, 8, 7, 8. 8, 9. 8, 9. 7.2. Alrighty. My god, we're done. 7.2. Okay, let's go over the actual numbers now. Like I said, I haven't really made changes to it. This does not necessarily represent how good the killers are in relation to each other. I just thought of their strength of things and then plugged it into a formula. Maybe the formula is not good, but now let's actually check whether or not things would make sense. So, strongest killer should be Nurse. Okay, good. Second strongest should be Spirit, which is good, 8.5. Now, the next strongest I would think would be like Freddy, Oni, Huntress, Deathslinger. Freddy, Oni, Huntress, Deathslinger should be... No, Billy too. Freddy, Oni, Deathslinger, Huntress should all be in that next category. Which coming after Spirit is Billy. Billy is not an 8.5. He's more like an 8.3 or an 8.4. So slight modifications would be done there. Freddy is there, which is good. Where's Huntress? 7.3, which would be still next. Deathslinger would be higher as well. Oni's pretty appropriately placed. Legion's good. Wraith, Trapper, good. I still think Bubba is definitely better than, like... I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. Bubba's definitely better than Legion, so... Like, the whole point is, there are a couple of adjustments to be made here. And the reason I don't want to make a tier list is because those adjustments start generating a bunch of arguments and stuff like that. So I wanted to look at a more objective rating. I'm probably going to modify things a little bit here, just because things just don't make sense. So I would have to make this like an 8.4, just to not be as good as Spirit. Nurse being an 8.8 is totally fine. Who needs to be better than who? Cannibal has to be better than Legion. So I would say we're going to do a 6.2 to the Cannibal. But again, we're still learning him. Legion's good. Ghostface is better than Myers, better than Cannibal. Honestly think Plague is better than Ghostface. Demogorgon is definitely not as good as Deathslinger in my opinion. I would say Deathslinger would also go up to a 7.2. Demo would probably go down to something like a 7.1. And Doctor being a 7 seems fine. Everything else seems pretty decent in my opinion. Everything else kind of adds up. Wait, 6.8, which is better than... Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, everything else kind of adds up in my opinion. So I had to modify things by like 0.1 or 0.2, but overall, this actually kind of worked pretty well. Judging the killers based on the main tenets of what makes a good killer, and then applying that into a formula, and then giving you a fairly decent gauge of their overall potential. From, you know, because this was meant to account for like all the maps, all the add-ons they could use. Sometimes when they're not using any add-ons, it tried to average in all of that shit. So overall, this is just a cool little experiment. It ended up being a kind of more accurate than I thought it would be. So I'm not going to make a tier list, but I guess I have killer power rankings here. So I'll upload this and we can, I don't know, we'll just use that instead. But that is it, guys. I am going to go lay down. Oh, man. Talking is very hard when you can't breathe through your nose. Oh, boy. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you for watching this enormous video, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye, guys.